Good evening. I am your host, Jason Myles, here for another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the show, welcome. We're glad to have you here and hope you enjoy the show. If you dig what we're doing here on TIR, make sure to leave a like and subscribe on the way out. To all the returning subscribers and patrons, hello. Friends, let's have some fun tonight. We have a great guest, and we're cross-streaming with my very good friend and former neighbor, the host of Give Them an Argument, author of several leather-bound books, Ben Burgess.
I really should get those books reissued with leather binding.
Can you imagine if Zero released a leather-bound book? I think that might be making it. That's making it more than an actual check.
Yeah.
Wanted to do this show with you. Figured it makes more sense if we do this as a combined, united front.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of guests right there. So you gotta disperse that a little bit.
Yeah, you can't just one man is not enough for our guest today. Who was that your first time meeting her in person or no?
The thing that we did in Irvine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think that's right because she'd been on my show a couple of times back in like 2020, early 2021. But yeah, I think that was the first time in person. So when we did the thing, it's lost like tears in the rain since nobody was recording it. But Jason and Amber and Matt Crispin and I did a thing. Catherine Liu was moderating at UC Irvine, which was really fun. This is a good reminder that if we do stuff like that in the future, that people should like cross the country to go to it because it might not get recorded.
I wanted to do this show initially, and I thought about it too last minute in LA because I know Amber's in LA, you're in LA, that you work out of a studio, and I was like, oh, let's do it live in the studio. That's usually a more fun conversation. And then I remembered your city has some of the worst traffic known to man.
Yeah.
I forget
you definitely have to be careful.
Really.
You definitely want to come earlier in the day. Yeah. Or the night before or something.
It would have had there's too much logistics involved. So maybe next time. I'm sure she has a lot of promo stuff that she's doing for this new book. But well, Amber, sorry, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, it's like I know you're also not averse to starting to drive at like 2 a.m. So me couch is Sue couch, if it comes to it.
I was trying to figure out a way to make it work, but again, I'll blame myself for that. Our guest has had a very controversial, to say the least, tenure as a leftist podcasting elite. Maybe that has something to do with the hate that gets thrown her way, but reading her new book, which is a bit of memoir of not just her time in left activism circles, but it's an insider's look into a burgeoning left that not many people got to see, that starts with the Occupy Wall Street movement and then on to the Bernie Sanders presidential campaigns. Dirtbag is a thought-provoking, intelligent, funny, sexy, and at times hopefully heartwarming. Wherever you are watching or listening to this show, there are links in the description to purchase the book. This is a quote from the book. Generally speaking, I like writing about politics and I like podcasting about politics. In the right company, I even enjoy talking about politics. But actually doing politics, campaigns, protests, activism, organizing, what a fucking drag. I've done all those things. And since I'm a lifer, I know I will again. But they will always be a drag for me. It's just not my idea of fun, but I don't keep showing up for fun. Neither do I do it for a sense of identity, belonging, or camaraderie. I had friends before I had politics, and I would keep an eye on anyone in your organization who didn't. And I certainly don't do it for the warm fuzzies. Mm. I do it because I want socialism. And socialism for me is simply a chore that needs to be done. Much of my exasperation with doing politics is that socialism is something I wish was already done so I could get back to reading the short stories of Deborah Eisenberg, convincing my friends to rent a picturesque woodland cabin in Bumblefuck, California. One more time, as a California native, I don't know what Bumblefuck is. I don't know. Um, Trying to diagnose my dog's skin allergies, learning to play the Appalachian dulcimer, etc. Socialists become irrelevant to the masses when they forget that the work is intended as a means to an end. The goal isn't to be a socialist, whatever that means. The goal is to change the world so that we can live under socialism, or at least as much socialism as we can manage under the circumstances. That is from our guest, Amber Ailey Frost, author, activist, co-host of the successful Chapo Trap House podcast. Please give them an argument and TIR welcome to Amber.
Thank you for that intro. That was lovely. Thank you for having me. I have to say, though, you say that I'm controversial and I get a lot of hate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've ever experienced that. I'm pretty sure everyone loves me.
Oh, well, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I knew who the fuck you were and all about you when I met you some months ago in Irvine, California. I knew very little about you. And I found you to be a quite delightful person, insightful. And we got to hang out a little bit afterwards at Catherine Lou's house. And, you know, you were with the cool kids. And Ben and I and Cedric and our friend, I think even our friend left. Didn't Jordan leave for a minute? It was like me, you, and Cedric. And we were just, you know, keeping to ourselves. And you know, came over to our little area of the place and inserted yourself. And we had a grand old time talking a gang of shit. So yeah. I have no problem with you. And I don't understand why the rest of the internet has a problem with you. They're missing out.
Yeah, I think if anyone of any high enough profile is going to have haters, but I gotta say, I feel like I should have a higher profile for the amount of attention people pay attention to. Like, I should be making more money if people are talking about me that much. I think I'm entitled to it. But yeah, that is the number one thing that people who don't know about me say after they met me. They're like, hey, I Googled you and I found out like there's someone who got really mad at you once. Or if they do know who I am, sometimes they're like, you know, you're really nice in person. And I'm like, I am really nice.
There is a disarming Midwestern charm. And let's you talk about that. And you open your book talking about your life in Indiana.
Yeah, the whole section of the book, I kept thinking, you know, I mean, I grew up in mid-Michigan, and I just that upbringing feels so cosmopolitan as I'm as I'm reading this. I never once had to like get a cow out of the way, right? You know, to drive down the street. You know, where I grew up.
Your hometown. Well, let's call Indiana your hometown, even though it's a state, and you live all over the state. You moved a lot. I will also say this: there's a lot in reading your book that mirrored my life. So I was like, oh man, this woman's even more interesting now that I'm reading this book than when we were hanging out in person. Your hometown is nestled deeply in flyover country. You mentioned in the book meeting the writer of one of my favorite movies, Heathers.
Yeah.
Also a native of the Hoosier state. And you asked why he chose to set Heathers in Ohio and not Indiana. And you replied, because people can imagine living in Ohio. What is it about Indiana that seems so foreign to people? What do they get wrong about it? And what do you appreciate about where you're from?
I think the thing about Indiana is that everyone has something they can say about almost every state. Indiana, our state motto is Crossroads of America,
Yeah.
which sounds a little bit like Rest Stop of America.
And it's not. That's Iowa, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's a place you go to or you go through trying to get somewhere else.
Mhm,
Unless you're a sports fan, like specifically a basketball fan, you probably
mhm.
don't have any relationship to them. There's just not a lot going on. Our capital city, Indianapolis, we call it Naptown. And there's a lot of rural areas,
Mhm.
and the industrial areas have been in decline, like Gary. And the place where I went to high school had it was both a failed agriculture and a failed industrial town. So it was like the farms all got bought by Monsanto, and the steel mills shut down. So just nobody had anything. I think it makes us uh,
Like dogs from
it
Indiana as well.
makes us get very large dogs. Hey, come here. All right. Let me do something real quick
Sure.
because this will keep happening with every where I live now. There are a lot of coyotes, and the dogs are very upset by the coyotes. Just a moment. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Ben, as a Midwesterner,
Yeah.
you will have a disarming aw shucksness about you. What do you love about being from East Lansing, Michigan?
Yeah. What do I love about it? I mean, I do like it. Like I used to, my parents no longer live there. They actually just, moved to a slightly different part of California, like, I don't know, year and a half before I did. But
Mhm.
but every used to be right that, like, every year for a few weeks in the summer and a couple weeks in the winter, I would go to visit. And like the summer in particular, like I definitely felt I definitely felt like very like physically relaxed right every time I got there. And and the like the sort of summer temperature felt right. I'm a big fan of Bell's beer. Hockey, right? I like hockey. I don't know if that yeah, that is actually kind of funny. I did not know that shot until you said so. Just all the clutter on top of that bookcase. Yeah, right. But yes, even as a root millless cosmopolitan, there is something about the Midwest that my part of the Upper Midwest, right? That I've always liked. I've always liked coming back to. When I went back. I mean, there is like maybe a certain kind of groundedness. I don't want to like wax too romantic about that, but I mean,
Yeah.
I think it is a thing. And I don't know. I mean, like I also like the fact that, I mean, this is pretty sub-regionally specific maybe, but like, and I know it's true of lots of other places too, but like, I don't know. I also like the fact that I came from a place where like lots of people had good jobs because of the UAW historically, and that gave them like a decent standard of living. And there was just kind of a lot of just general ambient awareness that was a thing, right? That's like a thing that like lots of people living there had used to get like a kind of decent life for themselves and their families. And that's even though a lot of that's like declined, since I was a kid, I mean, obviously everybody's seen Roger and Me or whatever, but like, that's still, I think um, I think I probably benefited in my view of the world from like, just kind of growing up around that a little bit, in proximity to it. I don't know if any of that really answers your question though.
Um, it sounds like that your environment shaped your politics more than anything else, especially in the book. Amber, you talk about your grandparents quite a bit and how they
Yeah.
talked about union jobs and things like that. And then, you also talk about the steel mill that was no longer a steel mill and how labor laws got reset when the steel mill got bought out. Um, so it sounds like Indiana and East Lansing, Michigan really kind of set your guys' political trajectory into leftism, which I think a lot of people probably can't fathom.
It's interesting too because I don't know. First of all, Ben, I love that you said I don't want to romanticize it too much, which is the most Midwestern thing you could possibly say. You're basically shucks, jeez, yes,
Ah, shucks.
But I don't know if you were aware of it at the time, and
Mm,
I was aware of like, oh, things used to be better, but it
mhm,
wasn't literally till I moved to New York where I was like, actually, no, it was a little bit. It was when I moved to Bloomington, like college town. That's when I sort of started to figure out. I knew that right to work was going to be bad. I knew that
mhm.
NAFTA has been bad, but assembling things and getting a whole picture of it, I don't think I really got together until I joined DSA, which was a very different organization back then.
Mhm.
I don't know what do you think? Did you get it at the time?
To some extent, yeah. I mean, this is like is kind of, I think it was maybe hard to miss that some things had gotten worse, right? And that was, related to that picture about, about NAFTA and all of that. I mean, certainly in the, case of Michigan, right? I mean, Donald Trump might not have become president if people there weren't still pissed off about that, so
Mhm.
that because like you had in like those like Malika Jabali reports after 2016 that you had all of these people, there was all this whole narrative after the 2016 election about the WWC. That was like a acronym people were
Mhm.
using for like a few months before everybody started talking about Russia instead. That stood for, the white working class, which is a phrase that always annoyed me because it made it sound like that's a distinct entity, right?
Right.
From working class people of other skin tones. But yeah, I mean, like forgetting people who voted for Trump, just like the number of people who like left their ballots blank, right?
Mhm.
Would have taken Hillary over the top. So yeah, I mean, I think I did get it to a certain extent growing up, but it's definitely, yeah, I mean, definitely later. I mean, like I mean, I don't know. I can remember visiting, Fred in Detroit in like the late 90s, which was like an hour and a half away from where I grew up. And, like seeing a lot there that's actually gotten slightly better since then, but like
Mhm.
was sort of like something from a dystopian science fiction movie, right? Is like, like RoboCopy, right? The sort of state of like parts of the city by that point, right? So it's like that I definitely got, but this is actually good because this is something I wanted to ask about the book, right? Like that you do spend quite a bit of time talking about deindustrialization and also reindustrialization, which is something that I feel like a lot of people on the left don't necessarily spend that much time talking about or thinking about, right? So you make a big point in the book of saying, hey, people talk about this as if like offshoring of manufacturing and all of that was just sort of this thing that happened in nature, right? That there's like some sort of physical law that's outside of anybody's control, and you just sort of have to make the best of it.
Mhm.
And certainly, like mainstream pundits have talked that way forever, but like even some leftists have kind of started talking that way, and you really forcefully kind of make the point. It's like, no, this is all sort of under human control.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's. I mean, there's obviously we both know that there are some very major factors in that shift. One is that there just has been a decline in the industrial worker, so there's not a lot of people left to advocate for themselves. Two, the left or whatever you want to call it has become very college educated. I even know that I was taught like, you climb up the income ladder by going to college. Jokes on me. But they have internalized this idea that whatever logistics, driving a truck, working in a factory, the hard hat jobs, construction builders, um, like I mean, we could talk about a lot of industries, but like the
Yeah.
traditional backbone of an industrial labor force is like passe or something. It's like, well, we still need steel. So why what brought you to the conclusion that that this is over, or that it has to be over, that there's an inevitability? It's a real narrowing of sort of ambitions. But it's also just this kind of, I don't like the word classist because it's sort of confusing to people. I think it means being, I think it's useful in some ways where people, that just means sort of like snobby. But there's this false impression that there's no one who wants those jobs, that those are sick, miserable jobs. And that's just not true. I mean, they have been historically really brutal. You know, Mark's talked about the satanic mills, but there's nothing, again, that says that those have to be brutal jobs. I'm a big believer in workers having a geography that they share. I talked about this somewhere else, but you know, I think it was teachers union. One of the things they wanted was a break room that the principal wasn't allowed to come into. It's something that a lot of factory workers have fought for too. You need to be next to each other. You can't really, I mean, like physically next to each other. We're not going to have a bunch of remote workers organizing. And plus, you know, the industrial worker, the logistics, manufacturing, builders, they don't have to go to college and spend tens of thousands of dollars to get those jobs. In many ways, college graduates are really disadvantaged. And by that, I mean, they're not in a good position to fight, not like, oh, poor college graduates. I think it kind of sucks for everybody, but to expect them to be, you know, to expect them to be the, I guess, what would you call it? The shock troops of socialism is highly unrealistic for a number of reasons.
No, definitely. You know, and this is something that, you know, I think that people sort of sometimes hear that, and I wonder if like some of, you know, like, you know, some of the impulse towards saying, oh, it doesn't really matter what people are doing for a living, you know, we'll just sort of organize that. It's like, yeah, of course, everybody should have a union, no question, right? You know, you should support organizing efforts everywhere. But there are reasons why strategically it's like very unlikely that that people in other sectors of the economy are going to be able to play the kind of role that traditionally, you know, manufacturing workers, miners, etc., have played in the workers' movement in you know,
graphic designers are not in a very good position to, you know, lead the charge. And I mean, anyone who has to pay for college is in a really bad position. But people are just really remotely working so much now that it just seems silly to me to think that you're going to develop the kind of relationships and the sense of trust. Moreover, the gig economy, it's really, how do you organize when people have impermanent work?
Well, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but before Proposition 22 happened, when AB 5 was rolling out in California, I don't know if you were in California at this time, Amber, when AB 5 rolled out first, there was a burgeoning organization of Uber and Lyft drivers that were trying to organize against 22, and it didn't work. You know, it's to your guys' point, it's really hard to organize when we are so atomized. That being said, shifting to the next question, which is kind of a big part of your book, and that is your trifecta of leftists: masochists, pedophiles, and necrophiliacs.
Right. Just spent this whole thing at the beginning talking about what a nice girl she is, and then now,
I call everybody a pervert.
Hey, I also said it's a sexy book as well, right? She's a little, you know, girl next door. There's a little bit of Doris Day in this.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of you know,
Norma Ray.
Yeah.
You know, what do you want?
Yeah.
You want the Sally Field right now? So let's get the Doris Day. So Um, you talk about these three types of people that you've encountered.
Hmm.
Three types of personalities, I should
Yeah,
say.
on the pervert left, as I call them.
The pervert left. Is that adjacent to the dirtbag left? Mm,
No, I
I'm
think we're
just
pretty much at war.
I'm teasing. I'm
Yeah,
teasing. And you know, we will get to the dirtbag question later
right,
on. But um masochists, pedophiles, and necrophiliacs. I
right.
just got done reading an amazing book about the 1980s satanic panic. So
Mm.
I sadly have been knee deep in pedophiles. Um,
Which one? Which one was it? I
we
probably read
believe
it.
the children. We believe
Oh
the children.
yeah, yeah. I've read that one.
Do you know
Uh,
the author?
yes, Richard Beck.
Like no, like do you know him?
Yeah, I've met
Okay,
him a
then
couple times.
you I'm sorry?
I've met him a couple
Oh,
times.
I thought you said something else. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Um, yeah. No, that's it's another thing too there, and I want to make a distinction that I'm talking about the difference between toxic pedophiles and a good harmless pervert. When I talk
Yeah,
about the pervert left, I'm not talking about a harmless horny pervert. I'm
there's
talking about
no
people whose
yeah, this is
perversions are affecting us negatively.
this is an R. Kelly free conversation. So
Right.
don't worry about but can you elaborate a bit for the listeners that haven't read the book or that are interested about reading the book? Because I again, wherever you're watching or listening, there's links in the description. It's the first thing that is written on the description is a link to the book. Please, if you haven't gotten it, get the book. But Amber, tell us a little bit about the masochists.
So I think we've encountered the masochists. I think they were the kind of first wave of we saw them first on the early kind of social justice internet, when those sort of circles sort of migrated from Tumblr to Twitter, or at least that's when I first noticed them. I think the phenomenon existed earlier to that. I think there were a lot of Maoists that did a lot of self criticism, is what they used to call it, self crit. But I think generally there is a tendency of quote unquote privileged people to sort of enact a politics of guilt.
Mm.
As a privileged person, or as a colonizer, or my favorite is like when they can't figure out how to say that they're white,
Mhm.
so they try and like figure out like they can't say as a white supremacist, and I've heard my favorite one is as a learning
Speaking as a white
racist.
supremacist,
Speaking
As a
how do you
learning
feel?
racist is my favorite one.
How does it make you feel in those situations? You talk about it in the book with some kind of biting sarcasm, but
Right.
seriously, we've all been in those situations.
Mhm.
I am not a white supremacist, um, but I have been called a man, and
Yeah,
I've been told some really horrible things about just being a man.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be. Don't be. That's what I get for being a man and
Yeah.
saying, "Why are you mad at me?" And they were like, "You're part of the problem too." I was like, "I didn't even do it. I tried to break up a fight."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All jokes aside, what do you do when you're in those situations of masochists? Because, do you act like you're not white at that point and go,
Mhm. Act like. Um, I think I think it's a weird position to be in, as someone who, people can't exactly figure out, like, that is someone who is suspected of not being totally white. So I'm in a weird, and I'll never tell. I'm in a weird position because 'cause I've noticed people, they'll go straight after someone who's, like, white, you know? Like, I'm white, but I'm, like, gold-plated white, They don't know what's under there if they scratch. Uh, but, like, 24 karat white, you'll see them, like, sort of attacked. Um, you'll, uh you'll see them be like, you are part of the problem, because
Mhm.
hey, if you're looking to self-flagellate, or you're looking to be punished for your whatever, your trans historical, the oppressions of your ancestors, you will find someone willing to punish you for it. They'll do it because they have an advantage. My favorite incident though was someone was like, well, I think we all need to admit that we have like internalized racism. I mean, all the white people who need to admit that well, I mean, I'll tell you, Hmongs are cool. They're Midwesterners. They're good Midwestern Asians, yeah. But I think okay, so this person was like demanding that people sort of like acknowledge their complicity. You know, this is the dominatrix in the masochist relationship, and I'm just not talking. And I don't really get in trouble again because they're like, "What if we're wrong?" And they're like, I think we all need to admit it. I think you guys need to admit it if we're going to move forward. And that someone was like, well, are you white? And I'm like, well, that's a rude question. But I was like, sure. And they're like, do you want to, acknowledge your complicity? I'm like, no, I'm not. I didn't do shit. Nobody I know did shit. Nobody, no living relative I know did shit, especially the non-white ones. But like, they were like, and then a white person sort of jumps in and they're like, but don't you think you have like an internalized racism? I was like, no. And I'm like, you? And they're like, I think I hold racist beliefs. And I'm like, well, why would I listen to racist?
You're a fucking racist, you know.
Yeah, so I'm racist, trying to tell me what to do.
Amber called me out on my racism when we met, and she doesn't, and she's being again a good Midwesterner, or you just don't remember.
I don't remember. There was a lot of wine.
We had this whole
it wasn't that much wine.
I'm just in the living room about your exact racial classification, and
yeah.
That's like there were calipers out,
we had the whole eugenic test ready for you. We're like,
yeah, everyone was ready to do 23andMe, family trees,
I mean that is something that there is something that's kind of amazing about that like I really do sometimes see very, for lack of a better word, woke people like sitting around having conversations about who counts as white and who doesn't, which is
you
like
do not want to go down that rabbit hole.
Which is like it's like this is a subject that only interests people who think of themselves as being extremely progressive in a certain way, and like Nazis, who officially counts as a member of the white race, and who doesn't.
That just doesn't sound like a not racist thing to do for me, but who knows? As I've been accused of being racist before, apparently. But I mean, my
were you
position
saying the N-word, or what were you doing?
Yeah, no, I wrote it down on a piece of paper. That's the loophole.
That's how you doodle when you're thinking?
That's not how you doodle? What do you doodle, man? But bottom line, I think guilt politics are a dead end. I think they're kind of self-absorbed and selfish. I think they are very beneficial for kind of tyrannical personalities to boss people around. And they're kind of beneficial to these masochistic people who think they've been a really bad boy and want to be spanked. It's like very perverse to me. And I'm like, I don't think this is helpful at all.
Which does go to a line that you quote from your friend Jed several times in the book about how the left can't count, because there is obviously a particular type of white person, particular types of other kinds of people who enjoy kind of ritualized guilt and self-flagellation. But I mean, this is not like a deep point. This is like kind of a blindingly obvious one, but most people don't.
Yeah.
And so
keep it in the bedroom, man. That's your thing.
Keep your
what you do privately is none of my business, but I don't think it's very useful in this meeting about rent stabilization.
Yeah, you probably, like, if you're going to start your meeting about rent stabilization by, I don't know, it's like, reading an acknowledgement about how it's stolen land, and having people sort of ritually feel bad about it, like, that's going to appeal to people who get some kind of pleasure out of feeling bad about themselves, but it's not going to appeal to most people, which is a problem if you want to convince most people so you can win.
Okay, so I have a question about the land acknowledgements, just land acknowledgement etiquette. Do Black people have to do a land acknowledgement?
Do you want to hear
Like
a true
American
story?
Black
Do you want to
people?
hear a true story, or do you want me to joke with
Absolutely,
you?
because this
You want to
is
hear a fucking true story about land
yes.
acknowledgements?
Do go on.
I'll tell you the name of these people in our private chat
Right, because we don't do
because I have a
private.
feeling you might know some of these artists. I feel very confident you do.
Mm-hmm.
Was on the last tour I was on was with quite a woke band, and they did a land acknowledgement every night. They were the headliner. We were main support for them, right? And after a while, my band, who is not, I would call them apolitical at best. Regardless of the music that we did was all me, but they were just like, yeah, we're here to fucking rock out, right?
Yeah.
Didn't really get the land acknowledgement. After a while, we were all kind of like, this is kind of tarded, because they would go at the end of their acknowledgement, they wouldn't just acknowledge it. They say, if you have land and would like to give it back, I'm not making this up. I wish I could call one. I'm gonna call one of the band members up right now. They'll fucking answer the phone. And they're like, we have people in the back that'll help. They would say a word, put that together for you.
Doing a tour stop in some town with the last family farmer who's keeping it together in that town. It's like, oh shit, I should give it back.
All we got is this, but you can have it. And so there was other things that happened on that tour that I would definitely love to tell you about that are just so like, you gotta be fucking with me.
Yeah.
So
did anyone? Did anyone give the
no?
Oh wow.
And
it's almost
so
like
we would watch. So we watched
show.
the headlining. So check it. We don't have a merch cat. You know what it's like touring small.
Yeah.
So we played, right, and we get done. So we're fucking sitting watching the headliner set, buy our merch stuff, and we would always be like, who the fuck is the person? Because we've been traveling with these motherfuckers the whole time.
Right,
so who's the person? So anyway, we got to New Mexico and Albuquerque, and we were all stoked about Albuquerque because, you know, I had toured there for years with my previous band. We had hella friends coming. It was going to be a great show. We're all hella stoked. And the night before, they had got hit. Their car got hit, so we had all their gear in our fucking van, right? And their tour manager calls me to go, hey, we want to move your slot. I'm like, no. Like, we're going to move your slot, and then the local opener needs to play your gear. We're like, no and no. Local openers have been fucking our shit up all over the country. We've had to get repairs on our shit all over the fucking world on this run. And no, we're not moving our slot because we won't be playing in front of anybody. We traveled thousands of miles. They're from here.
Yeah.
Fuck them. That's not how this
shit first. Touring band gets they hand the phone to the local opener who is native, and they start yelling at me about, do I know where the fuck I am? I'm on such and such land. And I lost my shit. We were in like the last leg of the run. We had all this woke shit going on every fucking night. And I got someone yelling at me about, do I know where I am? And I said, are you literally asking a black dude right now if he knows where the fuck he is in the world? I said, you and everyone that looks like you can fuck right off. And I started throwing the headliners gear in the middle of the street, and the band grabbed me, and we went home after that. We just got off the tour, and you know what? Here's the thing. I bet that works on a lot of people, especially white people. But they're like, I'm sorry. If I apologize enough, I'll be absolved, and that'll be the same thing as doing something. But guess what? Land acknowledgements don't do anything for Native people. It just allows, like, I don't know, a few Native assholes to like to just like tyrannize the whatever fucking social situation they're in.
Never been to this day. And I've been divorced. Like, I don't know if I've ever, I don't know if I've ever been that fucking angry.
That is wild. That
Yeah.
is wild.
True
Also,
story.
it's very interesting. I don't want to get too off track here, but it's very interesting because I don't know, all these different indigenous people had their own kind of like they would have different, for lack of a better lack of a better word, countries.
Mhm.
They had different laws. They had different laws about ownership. Sometimes they were at war with each other. Sometimes there were land disputes between them. It's almost like we're getting involved in politics long since past and trying to like litigate something that was, I mean, under disagreement at the time oftentimes. But it's like, you know, it wasn't all, that's not how land ownership works. You can be against imperialism and colonialism without reducing it to the fact that, well, the Lenape had the deed to this town. Like that's not how it works. That's
Well,
not how it
it's
works.
just, I mean, ultimately, it does start to feel a bit like, a form of blood and soil nationalism, that like people who have this ancestry have this special connection to this piece of land that nobody else
Yeah.
doesn't, which is a thing that I generally tend to be, against ideologically in other contexts.
That little
So
menorah's glowing.
no comment.
Yeah. The blood and soil thing also ties you into the blood and soil thing also ties you into knots when it's like, do you really want like Swedish people to do land acknowledgements in Sweden? You know? Or like a recent African country with like that just had a coup. Or like it's there's bound to be some disputes over who is in charge of
Mhm.
that land anyway. But also, I don't know if privatizing public lands is going to be helpful either. That's my favorite. Is when people are like, we should just give this big chunk of national forest to this indigenous tribe, and I'm like, that's called privatization.
Someone on Ben's stream, J-Bone, says, give Fargo and Grand Forks, North Dakota back to the Black Israelites.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who
You
the
betcha.
fuck. I've been to Grand Forks hella times, almost moved there. I've only been the black person there, so I don't know if where the Black Israelites are in Grand Forks.
But I bet there are a lot. If there's a college there, I bet there's a lot of people.
There's a
you could
college,
boss
right?
around.
That's all Grand Forks is a college, and then it's Canada.
And then you are gonna, if you wanted to, you would have a lot of white people to boss around, and they would love it. They could be the masochists. It's tempting
Dude.
sometimes, you're like, man, I could really use my marginal identity to terrorize these people. But I'm a
Amber,
nice
those
person.
people, they dress like African Bambaataa in the Soul Sonic stores. And I can't take anyone seriously that's walking around
Right.
like Parliament Funkadelic yelling at white people.
Yeah.
It's
a bit.
I can't.
Well, you want to move on from the
Yeah,
from
sorry.
Moving on
the masochists to the
racism.
pedophiles.
Oh yeah, we've only talked about masochists. So
let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
pedophiles and necrophiles.
tell us about pedophile. I love the pedophile part because it was not so long ago. I was watching a thing recently on who was the Supreme Gentleman. What was that kid's name? You remember that kid?
Oh, uh-huh.
The kid that shot up
Like Elliot something.
Elliot. I almost said Elliot Spencer.
Rogers, right?
Elliot Rogers. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
watched this very. It was way too fucking long. The last half hour is great. First 2.5 hours, and this is when Elliot Rogers had his 3rd birthday party, and that's when he knew he didn't like GI Joes. But Elliot Rogers, look, there's always this debate about guns that happens, and Elliot Rogers and the Parkland shooting, all these things. I felt like they didn't happen all at the same time. They definitely happened over a certain period of time. But Parkland was this moment where everyone was like, the youth will set us free. And there was a young girl that kind of tragically became the face of this movement. She was probably like 15, 16 years old. And you're talking about kids that have just been through an insane tragedy where all the adults in their lives failed them. Remember, there was an armed guard at the school who hid, right? So these kids are getting together, guns are bad. Like, I get it. And everything they did was never good enough. Remember, they were trying to raise awareness, and people in Chicago was like, what about these black kids in Chicago that's been doing the same thing? Racism.
Or they were like worshipped, like a kid with PTSD, who is still literally a kid, is have some sort of grand insight into this. I mean, they might know things, and you should treat kids like human beings, but oh my God, either they were, and you know what? I'll be perfectly honest, I got annoyed by that little David Hogg kid. Not as much as Greta Thunberg. But at some point,
is it
really healthy? Is it really healthy to like turn these kids into mascots? Like they all have fucking PTSD.
People got real deal erections for Greta Thunberg. We have a little Swedish girl that apparently can't get right, that keeps walking out of class because the Earth is gonna die.
I could not. I was like, what is this little fucking white Scandinavian girl screaming at me? Like, I was so incensed. I was just like, with her autistic braids, even like, this person.
Did you say she had autistic braids?
Oh, even her hair is autistic.
Okay, this is hold up, Amber. This is you in the book.
We coming for you, nigga.
That's you in the book.
And it's like, ultimately, I feel really bad for her because I feel like she has really exploitative fucking stage parents. Also, I don't think it's that useful to scare the living daylights out of kids about climate change. Of course, they could become activists, or they become incredibly disaffected and hopeless. You're supposed to be supporting younger people, not turning them into fucking mascots and worshiping them, because in a way that's genuinely passing the buck. It's like saying, well, we don't have to do it because they're magic and they'll figure it out. It's this weird Victorian cult of the child style thing. It's like, man, they don't know what they're doing. Don't put that on them. Well, even I'm getting annoyed by them.
It connects back to the masochist, because if you think it's sort of generally ridiculous to think that anybody has sort of a special insight and they're just right about things because of some identity characteristic that might have made them experience bad things in their life. If you think that's ridiculous in general, probably the most ridiculous case is thinking that somebody's going to have special insight literally because they haven't been alive for very long.
Yeah, because their lack of experience, like that's, kids are, the whole definition of youth is that you don't know anything yet because you haven't been around for very long.
Right. And it's like forgivable. It's fine. You're not supposed to know anything yet.
You're supposed to make mistakes, and you're also not supposed to have your entire life and everything you say and do and think turned into something for public consumption. I mean, my God, there are just, pictures of me from 5 years ago that I don't want out. Like, can you?
But that's what's so. Oh, damn it! I did the wrong button. Sorry. Sorry. You're canceled.
No, I'm not, because I forgot my mug is the copywritten intellectual property of the Membreño tribe. So I'm a good person. It is cool.
Dude, you just made a thumbs up on the thing. How'd you do that?
I don't know.
Do it again.
I have no idea how I did that. I didn't press anything. Wow, I'm just pretty cool.
You know what? That's your white privilege.
Yeah.
Shining through.
Maybe it's
for those that want to know what ethnicity,
magic.
Whatever ethnicity she is, she's magical white. That's what she is. Half unicorn. But what happens when young people grow up in a moment where commodifying your very existence is the only way you see the world? You only see yourself as brand. So wasn't Parkland kind of a magical thing for this, what I call neoliberal left, where it's like we got to democratize every aspect? So we have to have the March for Our Lives, which is a great big concert sponsored by large corporation X. Those kids are forgotten for the most part now. I don't know what happened to the young girl. I think smartly she disappeared.
Yeah,
so she
I
can
hope
live a
she
life.
has a nice private life and she's dealing with her trauma.
But all of us on the screen grew up in a time before camera phones, before mass surveillance. And there's this dumb thing going on. I shouldn't say dumb. There's people that I know doing it. There's this thing going on. It's like, show me a picture when you were 21. I can't speak for Ben, and I know Amber's kind of young.
Oh yeah, I'm 23 years old.
Motherfucker, you're on the screen with two 40-somethings, okay? Amber, I have gray hair in places that gray hair shouldn't be. So you just left your hole about how old you think you are, okay?
Okay.
Barely hitting 40, motherfucker. I'm 46. So when I was 21, we didn't have camera phones. We took real pictures.
Yeah.
I don't have any of my photos from my youth, even if I wanted to be a part of this internet craze. So we could make mistakes. We could be irresponsible without being judged for the rest of our life, because one wrong thing Greta Thunberg says, and for the rest of her life, she's tarred and feathered as the activist that's not really an activist.
Well, I think it has a really negative effect on art in general. But just to move to more shallower and less important, but stuff that matters to us. I have friends that are stand-up comedians, and they're like, I feel really bad for someone coming on stage for the first time. Because filming them with their phone, they're like 19 and say something that doesn't hold up well a year later. And we can't forget that like what is woke or whatever is changed so rapidly and is changing faster and faster and faster. Like they could be retroactively labeled, sexist or racist or just an asshole. And you know what? What if they actually were? Like, what do they do now? What does an 18-year-old who said something kind of slimy or kind of sexist or whatever, or kind of racist, what do they do when they're 23 and they're like, God, I was dumb? Are they just screwed forever because like they made a joke at an open mic and someone had a camera phone?
But do you have to be that character? Because we are kind of a walking brand at all times.
Or do you lean into it? Yeah.
Do you lean into this character? And I think we see that especially in online personalities. Because we forget that it takes time for. I was thinking about this a lot in reading your book, and thinking about records and music and certain artists that I really like. I come from the world of hardcore and punk and metal, as you could tell with the intro music of the show, and I like Black Flag. Their first few records aren't that dope. The Henry Rollins years, and they learn how to play their instruments. They get really good musicians in the group. Slip It In, My War. Those are some great hardcore records. You need to make those bad albums before you can make those great ones. Stevie Wonder has to be little Stevie Wonder before you get Inner Visions and Songs in the Key of Life.
When everything is recorded, there's no room for growth. You're always attached to everything you were before. And if there's no way to climb out or grow, the only thing you can really do is dig in your heels, which can't be good for anyone.
No, I agree. Ben?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know that I have anything to add to that, but I mean, that's definitely true, right? That's,
We're just like, we feel bad for kids. No. Stop staring at them. Stop looking at kids so much.
Ben, what if the first book you wrote when you were a kid and I say kid, you were a man technically getting done with your PhD, and the first thing you write is the Wonderkin, Ben Burgess. And it's not as good as by the time you get to canceling comedians.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how bad I would feel for hypothetical me under those circumstances. But yeah, look, I think it's bad that like permanent records are real now. They don't even have to be administered by schools, right? And I think that it's also bad that that there is a this kind of way of try to be a progressive person or whatever that a lot of people have internalized, that it's sort of without being too melodramatic about it, I mean, like I do always think of something that I remember Liz Brunig saying years ago about how this is like this this very harsh value system that seems worse than Christianity because it doesn't have a theory of forgiveness, right? Like Christianity, you can be forgiven for your sins, and it's like very unclear oftentimes, what the what the redemption is, and and it does,
You're damned.
Yeah, I guess so, right? And it does, maybe go back to that quote that Jason read at the beginning, from the introduction to your book, where you talk about, and I should say that quote is sort of situated in this like very funny thing about your interaction with your right-wing Orthodox Jewish cognitive behavioral therapist. And you're sort of trying to explain how you feel about politics, about socialism, but that thing about not sort of wanting to, worry about all of this all the time, right? That the goal of politics should be to give people the kind of life where they don't have to worry about politics, that and if you are approaching it in that spirit, then like I think that I don't have anything profound to say about this. I just think that people just kind of need to chill the fuck out about a lot of these things. But I do want to keep it moving because we've covered the masochists, we've covered the pedophiles, but we just have not done nearly enough necrophilia today.
Right. We cannot skip out on the necrophilia. So this one is very curious, and I think it's something that developed more with like millennials, because we're the people that are farthest away generationally from a vibrant labor movement while still being old enough to write books. It's okay the way, but there is precedent for it, right? Like Martin Luther King, not a popular guy in his day. He dies just sanctified. Even like, Republicans love to invoke Martin Luther King. You see it sort of with indigenous people in America. Once they've been decimated and sequestered and marginalized in reservations or just scattered across the country, then it's like, oh, the noble whatever. People like people when they're missing, when they're gone, when they're dead. Liberals tend to like people better or when they've already lost. And I betcha, I'm putting bets on it now. At some point, there is going to be a Palestinian memorial day or whatever acknowledgement in America. After, of course, all the worst things happen to them. And I think a lot of leftists or whatever, particularly in academia, like to do that with the labor movement now. I mean, again, back to the Native American thing. It's not just that they like these people who have been absolutely, treated horrible throughout history. They don't really pay attention to actual living like indigenous people. They're more obsessed and fixated on the genocide and the absence of people because that's more appealing, right? It's always way easier to like someone who isn't there because you can pretend they're a perfect little angel. So yeah, basically you want to, they kind of want to fuck the dead.
Nope. I really feel.
Not to put too fine a point on it. So you talk about this in the context of I guess you kind of tastefully don't say the name of the person you're talking about in the book. So
I'm so tasteful. I'm talking about his book. I didn't use his name. Anybody who's interested enough could look it up in the footnotes. But I found what he was writing particularly disgusting, and also he's fine. He got tenure. He'll be cool.
Yeah. I'm not too concerned. But in your critique of this person, right? You're talking about this view
critique of his book.
Sorry. Critique of his book. You,
No. You were right on, but they're both correct. Yeah.
yeah.
He's a nasty person who once called me a Nazi. So
Yeah.
So
You
I'll
And Amber was like this. He called her Nazi. Amber was like,
Keep fucking with me.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a riff in that section of the book about shitting on the University of Chicago where he teaches from a great distance. So it's I don't know how much we're going to separate these things, but yeah, in the critique of the book, right? So you talk about how this person has this view that it's sort of okay that, or at least we shouldn't sort of pine for the industrial labor force of yore, or try to bring it back, because really the sort of worker organizing that's like, this sort of should be the locus, where the action is now is about care work, which one of the main examples is hospitals and hospices and things like that. And this in some ways goes back to the conversation that we're having at the beginning about the the memoir aspects of your book and about growing up in Indiana and all that. And certainly what I thought of reading this is where my mom grew up, which is Youngstown, Ohio, which has I mean, when she was she was just growing up there in the era when, like, I mean, let's not skip the bad parts about this. Like, living there was kind of like smoking a couple of packs a day, because there was so much crap in the air, but from the steel mills. But everybody had a job at the steel mill, and and now that's not the case, to put it mildly. Right? I used to go. My ex-wife and I, when we were driving back and forth between New Jersey, where we lived, and Michigan to visit my family, would often stay with a relative of mine who still lived in Youngstown, and like it's pretty fucking grim, right?
Yeah.
As it exists now, and I'm not going to go into the urban decay porn details of that, but that's but it certainly creates this much greater need for care work, and and you kind of I think you make a lot of substantive points about what's kind of wrong with that vision, strategically, about what's sort of factually wrong about the idea that manufacturing never even completely went away to begin with, etc. But I mean, I think you also say some very compelling things about what's kind of grotesque about this vision, that it's like, oh, we can have this, like, it's fine, we don't need manufacturing, we could just have these industries where we're caring for people who've been devastated by the loss of those things. And there is a certain aspect here of like feeding on the corpses of what we used to have.
Yeah, why build bridges? We can build coffins.
oof.
It's pretty brutal. I mean, when you look at the cover of this book too, if anyone wants to look into it, there's a factory on it with the cross of like a hospital, and that kind of set it all for me, because it's like, so we shut it down, and now we're putting all the people that suffered at the hands of the loss of those jobs and health problems as a result of those jobs too. Totally. I mean, things about, I don't overlook things like air quality or pollution. We're just going to like lock them up in there to die. And then, the future of the labor force is going to be nurses who obviously can do amazing things organizing and should have strong unions and everything. But do you know how much it costs to get a nursing degree? Like, they are in some ways very, one, it's hard to wildcat strike when you have to make sure people don't die.
Yeah.
Right.
But also, when you're in a ton of debt, you're more scared, because there's more at risk with, you losing your job. Negotiating is higher risk. You can get a journeyman's as you can train to become a carpenter coming out of jail with no money. You can have a record. You don't have to have an advanced education. You get paid for training. And also, you're building something. We have a huge infrastructure gap. Have you noticed lately how many this is something that I've said for a while, but like at some point when historians look back on this time, they're gonna notice how like we slowly like acclimated ourselves and stopped noticing that like bridges collapse and trains just fly off the tracks. I mean, we just stopped noticing the place is just fucking falling apart. We have to build more things. And if we want to get green, or whatever that means, like if we want to actually have like, like lower the carbon in the atmosphere, like we are going to have to build more things. Like we need people who build things. It can't just be like, well, that's fine that everyone's like, miserable and sick and made unhealthy and dying by the decline of industrial manufacturing labor. The new job is going to be the people that have to take care of them while they're dying. And it's like that. I don't know if that's particularly I
mean, it also plays into the theory that the millennial generation is going to inherit all this wealth from the boomer generation as they start to die off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Netflix movie based off of a documentary. We actually got to have the director on here called The Guardians, about guardianship. I don't know if you guys follow guardianship at all, where people in certain states, there's very, very insane laws where, if your mom fell, the doctor's like, oh, Amber's mom just can't take care of herself. And we need to get a guardian because Amber can't take care of her. And we're going to get a guardian that's going to control all of Amber's mom's assets. And, we're going to put her in a home, and good luck trying to get her out.
Yeah. That seems like a conflict of interest.
It's again, I think that plays into that narrative that there is going to be a great need for care for this kind of forgotten generation, because when we look at our unhoused residents, you live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
They're not young.
Yeah.
And these are older people that they've worked out of the workforce.
Yeah.
And Social Security isn't enough to pay the bills.
Yeah.
The nomad land initially is about the elderly itinerant workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's turned into kind of a love story of, life on the fucking road. But it's like, no, it's not about old people that can't afford to live, that lost homes in 2008. But moving on, Amber, do we have you for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I can do a little longer. Yeah.
Ben, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I do hate your Dodger blue shirt, by the way. Fucking Dodgers everywhere, dude.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about Nomad, and it's not politically illuminating, but it's like, man, I could only take so much of scenes of people like looking at sunsets and shit while like sad music plays in the background.
Yeah.
That movie, I've never been angrier at a film than that fucking movie. But Ben, you want to get into this?
Loved it. I didn't even watch it because I read I'm like, you know what? Seems a little reactionary, or it seemed mawkish.
Yeah,
I didn't know it existed, and Leisha Brooks told me about it. Leisha Brooks told me to watch it because I want to hear what you have to say after you watch this movie. I fucking lost my shit. Ben, you want to get on the Corbin question? You probably
well, I mean, it does kind of go with some of what we've been talking about deindustrialization, and like I think also even just now a little bit. You were talking about. Well, I guess Jason was talking about perceptions about millennials and inherited wealth and all that stuff. Since you talk about your experiences canvassing a little bit for Corbyn and the Labour Party in Britain when Corbyn was leading it, and kind of some of the ways that what was going on with the Labour Party and the successes they'd had in 2017 was being misrepresented as a matter of, they were like mobilizing, these like millennial socialist students when, that's not the story that you heard from people on the ground. But yeah, so if you just wanted to speak to that a little bit, or just kind of more generally what you got out of witnessing that that defeat, of Corbyn and that version of the Labour Party.
Yeah. I mean, it was really illuminating. Like we went to Dagenham, which had a closed, I believe, Ford plant, and heavily immigrant, very abandoned, very very big for Corbyn. But I was walking around with Matt, one of my co-hosts. I'm like, look, it's like the Midwest. It's like we're in Gary or Flint. Which really did drive home that this is kind of a global thing, is like particularly like outsourcing things from the West to developing countries. And those developing countries now have their development stifled and they can't develop their own infrastructure because it's like, well, the only jobs are for American companies that are moving there specifically because there are lower wages, and it's this whole cycle and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, to get back to the original question, yeah, it was also very similar in this way where they thought of it as a youth movement. And obviously, like, a lot of young people got really invigorated. I mean, as much as I was, talking shit on the youth, it's, one of the advantages of youth is that you have a lot of energy and you're probably not as beat down by life. And, you tend to have more time on your hands if you don't have like kids or a mortgage. So there are definitely political, in terms of organizing, advantages to being youth. But I was like, oh, there's this whole young group of people. And then I went to Canterbury, College Town or whatever, and people had been writing articles about how all these young students were going out and registering everyone on campus to vote. And then I talked to the two people that ran like the Momentum chapter there, and they were like, well, one, the strategy was to go outside of town and to knock on doors of people who didn't usually vote, just like the Bernie campaign, to find the non-voters. And two, that entire campaign was during the summer. Or the campaign wasn't, but like that voting period was during the summer. None of the students were here. They all went home to vote. But again, I think this plays into the whole like pedophilia thing. It's like, oh, the children, they're going to, not only are they going to lead us forward, they're more liberal and forward thinking than any generation ever has been. It's like, well, first of all, the problem with that is that they grow up and you don't have them forever. So if you just lose all the time, there's nothing that's keeping them there. The other problem with it is that that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of right-wing kids that are becoming more and more right-wing. I think the general stratification of and the kind of the identity-based, and I don't mean like ID poll, but like, being a rose emoji or a Pepe or whatever it was during the Bernie campaign, it was like an avatar. It was something to be. It was something to do. It was a way to identify. That stuff existed on both, I wouldn't say opposite sides of the spectrum because it's more of a culture war. But, there were right-wing young people, like very right-wing young people. And that's the result of a lot of, market forces or whatever. That's what happens. They're miserable. A lot of them are, declassed. They don't have a big future ahead of them. And you can arrive at a lot of different conclusions if you aren't optimistic about your future. Some of them are very left-wing. Some of them are very right-wing.
We had I had recently someone, I think Amber, Josh Citrellia.
Oh, Citarella, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I said his name wrong again.
Oh, I'm just guessing. Actually, I don't know if I know it right.
Because you're white, you said it right. That's how. White says it right. Black is whack. So. I don't,
yeah, you just tried it. That was a weird improv, but you had to rhyme it. Yeah,
I had to rhyme it. You have to rhyme it. If you don't, it doesn't count.
I love Josh. I love what he does. Yeah,
I found him totally randomly on a YouTube video and was blown away by the research that he's done into these kind of odd ideologies. I'm a Maoist, Islamist.
And it's not so much about the ideologies themselves being significant. It's the fact that so many young people are picking a boutique, a seriously weird, marginal, ideology as like an identity. It's not like, oh, look at this new trend of like, anarcho-Maoism. It's like, look at what all of these, like, everyone is so atomized ideologically. They're just coming. It's like, they're designing their bedroom or something,
But
like they're decorating or something. It's very strange, and
but
it's
again,
really interesting. I'm glad he's doing it. It's
yeah.
it's what like the Studs Terkel thing, but with a really sad young people generation. It's like an ethnography.
But does every young person feel they have to brand themselves as something in a moment where everything is so branded? And I feel like politically, years ago, we all start bands. Even
Yeah.
Ben joked about, getting a guitar because he was gonna be in like we all at some point do something but now I have a very
Never
niche,
declare word to play it for shit. So I'm out of that
you, me, and a lot of other people that had bands. But there is something to be said about this kind of moment where, okay, this I need to identify as this,
Mhm.
where we just probably would have, even written a fucking poem.
Yeah. And it was so much more, we thought of it as more significant than it was, which I think is
Yes.
practice for, that's not, it was practice for actually drawing out distinctions as like an adult, but I just remember being like, that's mall punk. That's not real punk. It's like, that's what you should be doing at 19, not trying to parse out whether or not you're like a Maoist or whatever. You can have like general political instincts and thoughts and curiosities, but like they sort of treated it like, punk versus metal versus like it's that kind of dynamic. It's just something to do and something to be, but not really anything to engage politically.
Yeah, which is like innocent fun if you're arguing about music classifications, but it's, maybe a problem if you're trying to build a movement, because politics is about the things that we're doing together, right? So I am curious. Speaking of which, I mean, I don't know, Jason, if I'm stepping anything you wanted to get into here, but like, but you alluded to this a little bit earlier, and I just kind of wanted to make sure that this didn't get completely lost, because this is something about your story politically that kind of fascinates me. Like, all right, I joined DSA in like, I don't know, December 2015, so that was like, granted, that does make me a longer standing member than like 99% of the organization, but you joined it when it was like, like a mailing list of like several hundred people. Like I guess the most basic question is why, right? I mean, kind of what did you see there?
Well, yeah, I think I mentioned that I sort of start to put things together. Like I always saw things. I always saw things and realized sort of like this had a political purpose, and this didn't just come out of nowhere. This wasn't an inevitability. But I only really sort of started to assemble it into like a worldview around college, and I was like, oh, I didn't know the whole Democrats, the left wing of capital thing, but I'm like, they also supported NAFTA. Like they also supported the war. I also have a cat. Sorry. This was a kind of a bipartisan crunch of the working class. And I'm like, well, what can I look at? What can I be a part of that I knew probably wouldn't be that significant at the time, but might be one day, that, has an agenda that's similar to mine, like a political agenda. And I went through a bunch of little things online, and I think I had pretty good instincts where I'm like, that's a cult. That's a cult. Those are cosplayers. And then I'm like, this seems reasonable. And it had a bit of a pedigree too. Like it was like, okay, this has at least been around for a while. I am skeptical of things that are very new, because most of them just fizzle out. And I was like, okay, I'm not, this has room for me and what I believe, and I think I could be instrumental in this. And I'm like, hey, and who knows? maybe someday they'll become relevant. And they did, and they became so relevant that they forgot that they had to do something, and now the organization is bankrupt as of last month.
See what you did? Fucking.
Hey man, the way I see it is that a lot of the leadership decided I was bad at some point. I don't know if it's still the people in leadership. So the way I see it, like, that's why they went bankrupt. Like, you turn on me, like, that's just God is punishing you.
Can you show me the thing you do when you're celebrating something good instead of clapping?
Oh God.
Can you show me?
When they were doing spirit fingers.
So here, we'll pretend for a second. So Amber's new book is out and it's a bestseller. Do it.
But that was like what you would do, like
during
meetings. It's just, like, that's so embarrassing.
Amber is still artsy enough that she is on top of the jazz hand spirit fingers distinction.
Did you fuck with him and do shit like this? Yeah.
It was so, and the thing is, people would really defend it, especially older people that didn't want to seem old. Like, they're very scared that people say, that's again that political pedophilia thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, don't make, they're doing things differently, and like, let's make room for them to do things differently. And I'm like, they're doing things differently from like the common language of most of the country. That is not a movement of the people or the 99% or whatever. That is a bunch of college kids inventing a new language to determine who is in and who is out and who's reading the daily telexes on what you need to do to signify that you're on the right side of history and that you belong. If you can't do what the average fucking 42-year-old Philadelphia dad can understand or whatever, like, then what the fuck are you doing? Speak the common tongue, for Christ's sake.
Like it's like Beyonce's never gonna get.
Yeah.
It's not. Is that what happens when you say the wrong thing? What happens? Can you show me what happens when you say the wrong thing? Don't act like you don't fucking know that.
I forget them. I spent all of those meetings like this.
Really, Daria? I'm not surprised.
I was such a real. I was real. There was like, you couldn't just say like no.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of it. Like, you couldn't boo. Obviously, the big thing was like, don't make noise. Because like people with sensory issues or whatever.
Who, like force sensitive Jedi?
Oh God. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Also,
they feel a rift in the force or whatever.
Several hundred people at the DSA convention, like maybe 3 of them have some sort of extremely unusual sensory issues. Can you just like give those 3 people earplugs?
What do they do at an airport?
It's almost like they're
yeah.
If they're not full of shit, I'm sorry, you just can't participate. Like, if you don't have the capacity or the ability to do the things that people do to communicate in the real world, maybe you need to find another way to contribute. Maybe public speaking isn't going to be your thing. Make some posters, whatever. Make some spreadsheets. But if you have trouble with, public engagement in any like normal way, then maybe being in public isn't your thing. But also, they're big liars and they're full of shit.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to figure most people who say things like that, like, no,
and no one wanted to be like, fuck you, you're a liar. Nobody wanted to. People are so scared. That was the weird thing to me, is that people were so scared if they weren't skeptical about. So sometimes they just lacked the skepticism to be like, I think that person is full of shit. But even the ones that privately knew, they were scared of saying, of not believing. You know what? It was a little bit like Believe the Children. Like, it was like, no, we can't possibly conceive of a world where a kid would make this up after an hour being coached by a cop without their kids or without their parents. Like, no one ever lies. No one has. Why would someone lie about this? And it's like, there are all kinds of reasons people would lie.
People lie about killing people.
Yeah. When I think about all the times I lied about why I was late for work, Just
Have you ever
lie.
lied to your parents? Like, look, here's a real question, and to anyone watching the show, have you ever lied to your parents when you weren't really in trouble? You know that, like, your mom asks you a question. Probably not Ben, because God damn it, I mean, you want to talk about wonderful family.
Are you calling him a mama's boy?
You- other than his dad that never liked him, but his mom.
I mean,
is really like
Jason's, Jason's met
Lord.
my mom. It's a very pleasant woman, but yeah, sure. Right. I mean, I'd lie to parents when I did just for like social comfort or whatever. It's like, anybody who said they didn't would presumably be lying about that. Right. I mean, like,
or like
but,
extremely autistic.
Yeah.
Like
so
autistic that you're like, that guy is telling the truth.
Hitherto unknown levels of autism. But but yeah, look, I get it, right? Like, because I know, I mean, I was actually that convention where those clips were from about the spirit figures and all that.
They should have been kicked out.
Yeah.
No, you're being disruptive.
Point of privilege? Is that the point of privilege thing happens?
Yeah, I just feel like you're being disruptive. If you can't handle this, leave. But no one wanted to do that because the whole thing was like, we have to be sensitive to everyone. We have to bring everyone in. It's like, no, you fucking don't. What organization brings everyone in? Even if that organization is going to benefit that person, that doesn't mean they get to be in charge of anything. Some people can't be in charge of things.
By the way, Jay Sefri, that guy is in such better shape than I've ever been in. That is not the actual body type of a philosophy professor. But in any case, look, I mean, I get it because a lot of people I know, right? I mean, look, I talked to plenty of people who were there who were definitely rolling their eyes.
My best friends use spirit fingers.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I get it. You don't want to be the person being like, no, this is stupid. Like everything you just said, all those rules are stupid, whatever, because then you're starting a whole thing about it. And that's not really what you're there for. And like, you didn't, and don't, nobody.
And thus that person is allowed to start the whole thing. Thus they get to run away with the meeting. Here's my favorite thing to do in a fucking meeting where someone's doing that. Here's my motion.
Yeah, it's just the correct response. But I get it. Like, you become a socialist.
People are so scared. I'm sorry, you gotta fucking grow a pair and be like, that person's full of shit. Get him out of here. Like, I don't know if they're like a provocateur or just an asshole, but get them out of here. They're fucking shit up for everybody. We have shit to get done.
The next game we're going to play at TIR is What's in Amber's
Cup. People have shit to get done. Like, again, you become a socialist because you care about like actual injustice in the world, not because you want to like spend your time arguing with crazy people about whether clapping is okay, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I understand the instincts, to be averse to conflict about it, but then the problem is that those people just get to like get their way all the time, and that and then it projects this like horrible alienating image to the rest of the world. And like, I mean, I think just doing this you've seen is probably a fair compromise.
Well, you can't obviously, conflict averse is a lot of times code for being a pussy, but like there's something to the idea, and this is a stupid tough guy thing to say. But no, you don't want to start things, but you have to be able to finish them. Like, if someone starts shit, you can't wait for it to blow over, because at some point, they're enjoying themselves, you're all distracted, you're placating them. They are the ones that started shit, and you have to end it.
Fair enough. Well, on the subject of times and places where a lot of leftists were being embarrassing and weird, Jason, I know you had stuff you wanted to bring up about the Occupy parts of the book.
Again, how much time do we have, Amber?
I got a few. Hey, tell you what, let me let the dogs in, and then I can go in for a second.
Here, go shoot a coyote.
Yeah,
she's a crazy look. She's not that big. She's also one of those people kind of like Kasperian that's like super tiny. when you see him. Huge personality. And
there's
I think,
actually Anna watches the show enough that it's quite possible she caught that. So all said as well.
Okay, well let her know I said that. Because you see these people in real life, you're like, oh fuck, you're fucking tiny. And I don't know. I really enjoyed the book. I hope you guys go out and give it a read.
It is a very it's a very fun read. It's very it's very well structured in this way that there's this kind of frankly slightly misleading and that sort of setting low expectations strategic way thing at the beginning about oh, I've got ADHD, and that's reflected in the writing style. It's gonna be all over the place. She knows what she's doing, right? It's actually all laid out very well. There's a flow to it, right? You're not gonna it's never gonna feel like homework. You're gonna enjoy reading through it. I certainly have been.
Someone's asking Amber if she can give a tutorial on coyote skinning, because we really know what she's doing out there.
Yeah, where the fuck does Amber live? Out in the hills?
I think I know where she lives. I'll be quiet about it, but I think
good call.
I think look, here's the thing. We talked about which her ethnicity, because I made a very rude comment about it, that by the grace of God, she's forgotten. She's blaming it on wine. I don't think she had a fucking drink that night. She was stone cold sober and called me out really bad, and that's fine.
She did not. I was there for this entire conversation.
Yeah, she was fuking. She did nothing was in her hands other than fucking, just crushing my soul. But she fucking we were giving her shit after a while when she wanted to join the group, and it's like, well, you want to come over here in the bad side of town. Well, we got to figure out what you are so we can make fun of it for the next hour and a half. And she was like, well, I'll give you some material. And I believe in my soul that with her bare hands, she can skin anything. And I believe she's cut the heads off of a few live chickens. Oh!
First of all, I will take a lot of slander, but how dare you accuse me of being sober at a party?
I hate to break it to you. I can lie to people and say she was fucked up. She was doing fat rails off the ass of some dude.
We will ask Catherine, because she made actual punch, and by the end of it, I'm like, pour some more vodka in there.
Yeah, you know why I had to say it like that? Because you were not drinking it. You forgot how much fun we were.
I had a designated driver for a reason. As for coyotes, I love coyotes. Mm-hmm. I would never hurt a coyote. I identify with them.
Ben, we have to address some super chats for a second. Amber, you have to be with. So also we have to add, usually we cut this show off at an hour, because Amber agreed to come on a Wednesday, which is usually our white guy Wednesday. They're allowing me to gentrify it. I did bring white people in, so it's okay that I'm here. Please don't mess with me on White Guy Wednesday. And you're getting free champagne here on the TIR. But thank you for the super chat. We have to address this, Ben, and you need to answer this question.
I do not.
You do have to answer this question.
Oh, I gotta know.
Well, okay, look, I forgot. This is also being streamed on Ben's channel. Ben would never answer this question on his own show. He's just doing this for me.
Okay.
Ben, what's Ben's opinion on host? Loyal or not loyal? Clear this up.
People need to know.
Well, I believe the conventional wisdom is not loyal. I think I've heard that in some lyrics.
That's fair. That is a fair answer.
Yeah, I mean, it gets said a lot. I can't imagine it's not true.
Oh, what is your take, Amber? Hoes, loyal, not loyal?
I'm sorry. In my experience, they have not been. I'm not going to use that to generalize about all hoes.
Right.
But I've had some bad hoes in my past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you just haven't met the right hoe.
Exactly.
I've always
Amber.
said that.
Hint, hint, hint. Exactly, Amber. Maybe you should come down south to Mexico. Change your whole perception. Change your whole perception. Occupy is a decade past, and a few people made careers off that moment. Some people.
Okay, well, now I'm getting a drink. Hang on.
Oh shit! Now she's getting a drink. I don't know what was in that cup, but she went from being shy at the beginning of the show. Did she pull up a whole bottle? This nigga.
We're gonna need the big bottle.
All right.
Oh shit! Ben, you want to get a bottle for yourself, Ben?
Occupy hustlers.
Ben, you want to get a bottle? Oh, Burgess, go get a bottle for yourself, Burgess. I'm the only teetotaler here.
Speaking of gentrification, this used to be the cheap bourbon, and then everyone found out about it, and now it's twice as expensive. And I gotta say, it's my only political issue at this point. Make bourbon cheap again.
Anytime white people find something cheap and they think it's kitchen cool, they ruin it. Look at what you people did in New York.
Yeah.
You know you.
Hey, I left.
You are in LA. How do you like LA? Don't
mostly white LA.
All of LA.
I'm in. Here's the thing. I'm in white LA with Black Lives Matter signs. LA.
Ooh.
That kind of white.
You know what that means?
I'm doing pretty well for myself.
I was gonna say that means you made. Sounds like somebody made it.
Yeah. See, I live in a part of East LA with lots of Mexicans. Amber's out where there are only white people and coyotes.
Mm-hmm. But I have two pit bulls, so I'm very popular with the Mexicans.
We're getting on racist. Now we're on racist land. The Mexicans, they think I'm one of them.
No, rednecks and Mexicans agree on quite a few things. One, fireworks are a year-round thing. You don't need an occasion. You don't need an occasion. Two, pit bulls, best dogs.
There's
other
stuff too, but fried foods.
Focus on that.
So Amber, I live in Mexico. Ben lived here.
Got some bourbon for solidarity. So
there we go. There we go. Clap it up. So Amber, I don't know if you know this because apparently you don't remember anything about our meeting.
I remember Bay Area and Mexico.
Lying.
I remember it.
That's
mostly. I was drinking.
You weren't.
I had a designated driver.
That don't mean shit. You was having designated fun.
This is the worst thing that of all the times I've been called racist or like a misogynist or transphobic or whatever on the internet, being called sober is the only thing that's truly hurt my heart.
Stone cold sober. You could have done a handstand, some old school break dancing. You was good as shit.
I brought out the cardboard and I know we're off track, but we're having such a good time. I'm having a really lovely time.
I just want to make sure that whenever, because you got a lot more press to do on this book, I want you to, at the end of all your other interviews, I don't give a fuck what show you're on, be like, this is all right, but I went on this one guy's show that lives in Mexico, and that was so much fun with Ben Burgess. Then you won't remember my name, like that one guy.
Yeah, Ben Burgess and the black guy with the hat.
Yeah, black guy. I just remember black guy. I don't know. Jamie Foxx. I don't know who the fuck it was.
I will say the worst part about this part of LA being like all the friends are like white, and there's a lot more guys that live on this side of town. And so when I get introduced to someone, I have a lot of trouble remembering names anyway. So I'm like, I'll tell my boyfriend, like, you need to make either some black friends or a guy with a really recognizable scar or like a redhead, something memorable. It can't all be this like dishwater. Get some different kinds of white mates. Maybe someone Polish. Anything for me to be able to tell them apart.
you look. First of all, we have to shout out to Dizzle McFizzle. My E&J is safe from gentrification. Until white people like it, then it's
we coming for you, nigga,
and it's gone. So that is true. A lot of white people look the same, and Oh, we won't even get into that. That's a whole
Yeah. We gotta
different-
stop before I get into
fucking
trouble.
the sameness of white dudes in hipster areas. That's
Well,
why you can spot
They're all
Ben
a
anywhere.
specific
You can
kind of
spot-
white too.
you can
Look,
It's
You
not
know
like
where there
you
were-
find like a Slav or something. Like
well,
they're
you know
all
where there were a
one
lot of white
kind.
people?
Hmm.
Zuccotti Park. All right. Smooth transition. Jason, go.
And the ones
Edward.
that weren't got NGO jobs.
No, let's
Get a real
Before we-
edge.
I'm gonna try to read this as I wrote it.
Mhm.
I haven't been drinking. I've been drinking. Well, I don't even drink. Occupy is now a decade past, and a few people made careers off that moment. Some people look at it as a beginning of a left resurgence. What do you think we should take away from that moment? Is horizontalism a dead end, or are they just doing it wrong?
Okay. Obviously, you know how I feel about this, but I would like for there to. Okay, so my mama and papa took me to a lot of church growing up. Right?
This is how we know you're really comfortable because you didn't call them by their house names. My mama, my papa took me to church when I was little. I used to have to sing them songs. Our God is an awesome God.
I spent a lot of time calling them grandpa and grandma and
Mhm.
grandpa, and then I realized that was redneck shame, and I will never do it again. I will call them to other people what I call them to them. And so sometimes very small church groups are horizontalist.
Mhm.
I would say the limit of horizontalism reaches a ceiling around 4 men or 6 women.
Wait a minute. What if they're all together and it's 10 people?
You're fucked.
You're
You have to- if there are 1 man and 1 woman, you're fucked. You can't even. I mean, you could do literal horizontalism with 1 man and 1 woman. Hey.
Yay!
But I mean, think about just romantic relationships. like there's no the level at which you can do it. Maybe you could organize a bake sale. Maybe. But if you really want to get something done, like obviously horizontalism, one, you're extremely vulnerable to people who have sensory issues, and point of privilege people, because like you have to stop and you have to listen to them. You can't kick out anyone who's fucking shit up, or at least reassign them to something where they can't fuck shit up. And this is assuming they're not trying to fuck shit up. But I've never seen an example of it working. I think when people point to examples of them working, it's generally like a weird racist misreading of like tribal or traditional sort of political like formations. And it's like,
give
well,
me an
first,
example. Give me an example.
oh, I've heard people be like, I don't know. I can't think of like what tribes they use, but the Ojibwe people of North, or something like that, or this South American tribe, and like, first of all, no, they don't. They're not horizontalists. That's like that is something you heard a white person with dreadlocks tell you, and you just believe it.
Damn. Once again.
I just think that we need to get past the idea that like hierarchy or is somehow violence or something. It's like, it's a division of labor. Some people are good at organizing, other people. Some people are better at working on discrete tasks. What you're really doing with horizontalism is expecting everyone to be good at everything, and expecting everyone to be nice, social people.
And you are going to have hierarchy anyway, because we're still talking about human beings doing stuff together. It's just that it's not openly acknowledged hierarchy that might have some democratic accountability attached to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I just think about like, I don't know. I think about like my step and half brothers and sister, and I was the oldest, and obviously I was going to take away the video game controller. because I can. You know, it's a
Sorry.
situation where even a 13-year-old Amber can be a tyrant. Imagine like an adult person who's like, I'm going to cause problems on purpose. Like you're really vulnerable to that. And those people do exist. There's fun. And you know what? They're important too. And socialism exists to, give them the degree of liberation that they deserve too, which means we need to keep them out of the fucking kitchen.
Ooh. Ooh.
That's what she said.
We are trying to feed you, but you are a bad cook. Get out of the kitchen.
People says that this is killing it, and you have to get the wrestling drop at the end of the episode. I know you again. I know you'd ever watch this show.
I don't
totally
listen to
for
podcasts.
racist.
I'm really,
Just,
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
Well, I
because
am racist. I mean, come on.
the internet doesn't lie. They say
Alerted, and not even alerted racist. Like has learned nothing.
No, I refuse to learn anything. I refuse to unlearn my racism. My racism is the only thing that I've learned, and you know what? I'm done. I'm done learning and unlearning.
There we go. You guys want to know what the book is really about? At the end, she
First
just says,
page, N-word.
yeah, and that's how it ends too. It ends, it goes, and that's why I can say the N-word. Dun, dun.
Once a year on my birthday, but there's rollover. I think people just figured out what a little bit of my not white is. But I admit nothing. You
didn't know that's why Amber's got bad credit? No?
I am
Oh,
in a
no.
lot of debt, so I always
No one
wanted
knew that?
something to blame. It's not my
People
fault.
always see you from here up. They've never seen the whole Amber. Oh yeah, she's got a shelf. Don't get it twisted. That's why she wasn't drunk. She was knocking over everybody else's drink. With a big hand. Excuse me.
This is why I have the big bottle. It's not as difficult to knock over.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, you guys are getting an inside scoop.
Oh God. There was a period too where people were on Reddit playing the racial guessing game, and I thought about saying something about it. Then I'm like, no, this is more fun. I like watching the debates more.
For those of you that play, I played the racial guessing game in real life, and again, I'm very glad Amber does not remember.
Oh no, you
don't. Shh. It's
okay.
We'll save it for after the show. Don't act like you remember now. That's fucked up.
No, I just
your boyfriend's in the room. You're like, oh no, I just.
It's not an insult. It's anytime anyone guesses anything, I'm like, no, I'm just cute. You know, like it's it's never an insult unless you're racist.
I was gonna say something so offensive.
There was a time when I was still living in Mexico.
He's gonna die. Jason is done.
We're out at a restaurant, and he said, like, he asked Siri something on his phone, and Siri like told him the answer, and then he said gracias because it's just kind of habit, you know. And Siri said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand that." And so he said, "Oh, that's because you're a racist." And apparently, Siri, at least at this point, was trained to respond to accusations of racism by saying, "I swear to God, no, I'm an anti-racist."
Racist. We lost our shit in the fucking restaurant. We lost our fucking shit. We're like, did you just tell us you're an anti-racist? Bitch, if you don't shut the fuck up. Oh, and it was at that moment.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. One more thing, just related to technology. My ex was like a VFX. You met my ex. You don't know the new one. I'm, lonely a lot, but never for long.
Ooh.
There's
a story to that too.
He was a VFX guy. Like, he works in video effects, and of course they started to involve AI stuff. and you communicate with chat GPT or whatever too, and you try to get a conversation out of it. And he was saying, Siri, tell me, or whatever, chat GPT, tell me a joke about an Italian. And it was like, why did the Italian go to sleep? Because he was too tired from eating spaghetti. And it's like, okay, first try. I get it. You're learning. But then he goes, tell me a joke about a black guy. And they're like, I'm sorry, you can't do that. That's racist. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. That means that chat GPT is white. Because black people would make jokes about black people. What they have default done is turned the technology white. That is so funny. It's not just that.
That's
it's a white man where he said, tell a joke about a man. And of course it made something like incongruous or whatever about men explaining things or whatever. And then it says, tell a joke about women. And like, I'm sorry, we can't do that. It's sexist. And it's like, that means you made a white man. Like, it can't be. It's
patriarchy.
Amazing.
Look,
Yeah,
hey, we live in a patriarchy.
They completely painted themselves into a wall with that one. They're like, well, it can't make jokes about black people. I'm like, well, then it can't be black. Like, then it's definitely not black.
But fuck you, Asian people.
We should give that one a try. Start plugging stuff in. We'll try and figure out what race and gender chat GPT
Yeah,
is.
no, that's awesome. That's like
Chat GPT, Chinese dirty knees.
Built a society with dystopian levels of economic inequality and atomization and social despair. But God damn it, all our robots feel very bad about their white male privilege.
We made them white and male, and they're
just so
not
they
going to
can
make
feel
jokes
bad about it.
We made we made AI college students.
Chat GPT is a nervous white guy liberal comic.
Who gets nothing but clapter.
Oh, you said
you
clapter?
know clapter, right?
Clapter?
Instead of laughs the worst one I ever saw is a guy walked out and he goes, men are trash, am I right? And people are like, ah. And it's instead of laughs, you get people clapping. And if you get people clapping, they're saying they agree with you, but they're not saying you're funny.
Ooh. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
Speaking of laughter, when are we going to go to the Comedy Store again, Ben?
I don't know. I mean, that was Chris hooking it up, so
we can talk to Chris. Amber, do you go watch live comedy?
I was just at a live comedy show last week.
No, but like funny
at
people.
The store. Oh God, no, I don't do stand up. I like myself.
So my very good friend, one of my best friends since high school, is at the store. He's been working there for a minute now. Chris Riggins, he opens for Chappelle, and
nice.
He forget what room he works in, but let's go. Let's like posse up, Ben.
Yeah.
Are you down to roll with us, Amber?
Absolutely. I love live comedy, especially when they tell jokes and don't just say things that you're supposed to clap for.
No, Chris is funny. He's actually like legitimately funny.
I trust you entirely.
Bullshit, because you fucking didn't know who I was. When he got on the screen, she was like, "Oh fuck, I think I do remember that guy." Heartbreaking. I don't fucking know.
What do you mean? I remember of the two people that were in like two other people that were in the bad kids corner. There was only one other guy. It was Ben, Said, and you.
Yeah. You remember fucking Said.
You
remember fucking Ben.
I've been friends with. I've hung out with Said multiple times.
I've hung out with him multiple times.
Yeah.
I don't care.
You know what? We hang out without you and we talk about how uncool you are.
I wouldn't doubt any of that. Said's a hater. Now everybody knows Cedric Johnson is Cedric Johnson. If you're watching the show right now, don't fucking send me no text messages. You're a bona fide hater. Taking up all the white women like that.
By the way, do you want one racist joke before we go?
Dude, we were telling so many racist jokes that night because I was telling you to hook me
I
up with a
know.
white woman with a long butt.
Oh God. All right, I got one for you. So, Cedric's book. Come on, shut up. Because Cedric's book is The Panthers Won't Save Us, and it got some reviews from crowdsourced from including that writer that I wrote about, who I called a necrophiliac. Where they said, leave it to a white guy to have criticisms of the Panthers. And my friend said, okay, that's a weird assumption. I could see, like, maybe
Especially
you
if his name
Googled a
is
picture
Cedric.
and didn't look hard. Yes. And she said, plus, you ate up my punchline. But it says, plus, his name is Cedric Johnson. She's like, that is a throw away the resume name. In academia, it's a keep the resume. But, in a regular job, it's like,
He's got a throw away the resume name. You would think he was angrier when you see that name, like, oh, Cedric.
Yeah, Cedric. You would think he was way older too.
Yeah.
That's like a 90-year-old black man name.
He's all cool, comes in with tattoos. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, everybody, hey. Fuck you, Cedric,
great.
hating on me.
It was
Damn.
great. There were like just a rash of people saying, "Thou dare this white man!" And it's like Cedric Johnson.
The worst is when Cedric Johnson gets confused for the other Cedric Johnson, who's also an academic.
Oh, that maybe is what happened.
And he gets confused with Cedric Robinson.
Okay, that's gotta hurt.
And wrote a book that none of us like.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. And now we know he's a hater.
Yeah.
Everybody send him a message and say, hey, Cedric, we heard you were hating on Jay when he wasn't around. Make sure he could never have his Kim Kardashian, Kanye West dream couple with Amber Ailey Frost.
Yeah.
It fucked up, man. That's all I wanted. Just want to walk around with a mask on, talk shit.
Yeah, obviously.
Right?
What else is there?
That's all. That's all. Okay.
On that note.
Yeah.
We're coming
After
to an
end on a racist joke that I stole. It's even worse is I stole this racist joke
from a more racist person.
Yeah.
Oh,
she's Asian, so she's the most racist.
Is it our mutual Asian friend?
No.
No. You're like, no, Asian. I know other Asians.
Yeah, not to brag. I know quite a few Asians.
I don't know if you know this, but they think I'm one of theirs.
It happens. Again, it's flattering.
They think I'm a fair skin winner. So
sometimes though, if they're older, that makes them really angry at me.
Oh.
Yeah, because they're like, why don't you speak Korean?
You're like, I don't know, because I'm fucking not.
Yeah, they're like, you betrayed the ancestors. I'm like, I don't know what to
do. You got to hang out with me and Catherine one of these days where she took me out. Well, I'll talk about that off air.
Yeah.
All right, last question. In closing, are you a dirtbag?
Born, raised, and will die.
What is a dirtbag?
So, unfortunately, whenever you say something that resonates with people, eventually it catches on and the dorkiest people in the universe start saying it until you never want to hear what you said ever again. So it was sad to me that Dirtbag left no, it wasn't sad. It was embarrassing that something I said in a tweet that I never expected anyone to ever remember became synonymous with me and with my podcast and with the Bernie Bros and Bernie Hoes who are loyal There we go. Those are loyal hoes. But I think I did like what I said, even if I got sick of hearing it and all the biggest dorks in the world got obsessed with it. I like that there were people that didn't bow to the liberal pieties of sort of the Democratic Party and general conventional liberal thought. There are people who were just socialists, without being like woke or whatever that means, without reciting the catechisms, without doing the spingers or using the right words or saying unhoused or whatever. They just believed that everyone should have health care and a good job and housing and shouldn't be in debt for college or medical bills, that people deserve some dignity and some control over the economy. And also they think dumb, stupid shit is funny. Like, it's like what I think of as normal people.
Her name is Amber Ailey Frost. Again, wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there are links in the description to Dirtbag. Dirtbag, the much anticipated debut from one of the most engaging and insightful writers of our generation. The book is more than a political memoir. It is a chapter in the story of the only movement that has a chance to reshape our world, into something better. It captures an electric time of thrilling triumphs, stupid decisions, friendships and rivalries, new and old, struggle, joy, setbacks, and heartbreak, all with magnetic prose, remarkable candor, and unflappable humor. And again, I want to reiterate, it's thoughtful, and every chapter, in my opinion, ends on a very honest, heartwarmingly hopeful note. Because again, you can't do this type of work, and I think people know you only as a successful podcaster, and there's a lot that goes into that moniker. It happens to people like Ben Burgess as well, where everybody assumes that you come from a certain amount of privilege, you come from very, very working class roots, single mother, a strange relationship with your father,
single teen mother, not to brag.
Single teen mother that had to drop out of college because of, baby oopsie. And you're navigating through the world, and the jobs that you've had that have also helped shape the way you see the world. Jobs that are people forget about them, working with people with mental illness and in shelters and environments like that. So again, if you want to have a critique on this woman because of something you've heard her say flippantly on a show, because this
maybe on this show,
hey,
like within the last couple of hours.
I say all the time, people say, what do you do for a living? I was like, I kind of make dick jokes.
Pretty
every
much.
so often, I kind of, but it was a very, very thoughtful read. I know you're a part of Damage Magazine as well. So I published something there recently. She didn't even know that. She's like, oh, that's the guy. Look at her. What a dick. What a fucking dick.
I gave notes on that.
Yeah, I bet they were. I'm glad I didn't see them.
I had notes. No, actually, I was very I was very in favor of it. It's a very good article.
How many good articles do I have to write before we can be seen on the leftist red carpet?
What, the Comedy Store?
How many?
I'll go to the store, man. Yeah. I'll go to the store for the price of a drink.
Sold.
Yeah.
Ben Burgess, closing remarks.
Well, I just want, I've also been in Damage, so Just saying. Uh,
Just always dropping his dick everywhere. Just like,
Yeah,
excuse me. Did you hear that thud?
I'm sorry, it just does that. It's too heavy to hold up. Yeah. No, I'm not going to have anything to say about this that's anything like as eloquent as what Jason just said. But it's a very good book, and people should read it.
I hope it's fun. Say it's fun.
Look, I didn't know what I was getting
It's dreary.
into.
It feels like homework. It's just very tedious at every page.
I will
we
kill
go.
you, Ben Burgess.
Hey, I'll be really honest with you guys before we go. I don't know why here. I'm even gonna take off my glasses. I'll be take off the glasses honest.
So
Ooh,
honest.
shit.
Now can we fucking go to the comedy store? I saw the cover of the book, and the cover of the book immediately when I saw that, I think I hit up Ben Fong first, and then I hit up Kathy Lou, and I was like, "Can I get Amber on the show?" I didn't know anything about it. I just saw the cover, and I was like, "Whatever's in here is going to be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to like it." And then I started reading it. I didn't watch any interviews with you, and again, I didn't know who. Sorry. Just like you, sometimes that shit works both ways, right? We didn't know who each other were.
I'm not
And
insulted at all. I'm shocked whenever anyone knows who I am.
and I couldn't put it down.
Hmm.
I was reading and reading. I was like, this is really fucking. I spent a lot of my day to day trying to finish it. Not to just get it over with, but because I was really enjoying an insightful take. There's things that you have said on shows that literally verbatim I've said the same things. I'm like, this bitch is fucking watching me. She could be on the under, little sneaky ass. But I really one of the better books I've read so far, and because of this job, as you know, we do read. We have to read a lot of books as we have a lot of guests that write books. But thank you so much, Amber. Thank you guys for hanging out and watching with us. Everybody that watched, I'll give them an argument. Please leave a like for Ben. If you have it in your hearts, leave a like for This Is Revolution. We could use it. Think of it as your hand-waving anti-racist great gesture for the day. If you really want to see stuff like this persist, think about becoming a patron. Beyond having access to the champagne room and movie nights, which are so much fun. You should join us for a movie night, Amber.
I would love that.
We watched Rollerball the other night, the 1973-75 Rollerball.
It's a great movie.
We watched ninja movies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fucked up. It's my channel, so I'm fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. Trust me. You get all that access, and you also make sure we can continue to do this. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Ben, I love you like a play cousin. Amber, it was a pleasure. And let's leave with some cartoons tonight. Peace, guys.
Thanks.